Welcome to The Strongman Say. Different guest this week. We don't have The Strongman Way. We have The Standorsubmit Way.
Hi.
Mason Donat. Yeah, welcome. I'm surprised you wanted to jump on.
I'm here, man. I'm for it. I've been. We've often, as the podcasts come out each week, and sometimes we're like, "Fucking get me on that thing." Like,
but anyway, I need to defend myself.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Last podcast, the conspiracy was that Louis come in as a part of AS to infiltrate and make sure we're not doing anything bad. And now Tyson's gone and you're here, so
wow.
The conspiracy continues.
It's working.
Yeah,
next week I'll be in that seat.
Next week, next week Tiff will be in this seat.
Oh. I don't know if I'll allow that. I'll send myself in.
I would pay for that. Unedited.
Unedited, of course.
Uncensored.
Yeah. Yeah. At one stage, I was like leaning on Tyson. I'm like, can we do like the Chinese, media propaganda thing where I just I'm on the show now.
And just not say anything.
No, say what the government says that needs to be said, like the Chinese propaganda machine. But anyway, we're here organically.
Yes, and we love everything about the government and AS and all of this.
Oh, we're the same. No, not the government.
Aside
we're
from
not
AS,
the government.
though, you are stand or submit.
Yep.
That's where it all started. Which a lot of people probably don't know. They know you make equipment and you do stand or submit, but I think you're more well known for running comps.
Yeah, which is weird to me still.
Yeah, I think it's just more people have jumped on since 2020.
Yep.
And there's this second wave of athletes coming through, so they didn't see before that.
Yep.
And how it all kind of started, which we worked out was 2016, 2015?
Technically, I registered my business name in 2013.
Yep.
I was still very much a flag-waving CrossFitter at that stage.
Yep.
Went to a buddy's gym who had some Atlas stones because I just wanted to have a go with them. Also tied in, I don't know if you'll remember him. I was training with a fella, Rory Knight Sadler. He was in our CrossFit gym.
Really good 105.
Yeah, so I mean, he was a really good CrossFitter.
Yep.
Had got to regionals level and then sort of went to the dark side a bit and started strongmanning. And I was like, man, that's cool.
Yep.
I like that. Not being a good 105 myself, I just sort of tagged along and hung out with him in the corner. But a mate's gym up the road had some Atlas stones and went and played around with them and went, man, these are cool. Where do I buy some so I can either put them at the CrossFit gym or just at the warehouse that I lived in at the time? He's like, oh, you kind of can't. You got to get molds. And I'm like, oh, well, have you got molds? He's like, yeah, but I don't know where they are. So he'd lost his molds.
Everyone's got old hybrid plastic molds
pretty much
buried away somewhere.
Yeah, that's where they come from. So I kind of, in the dumbest business model that you've ever thought about, went, maybe I can make Atlas stones.
It's just a ball of concrete. How hard can it be?
Yeah, pretty much. Look, we'd had a little bit of experience pouring concrete before in the workshop, but not making Atlas stones. So we'll do that. We'll make up some molds. And then while we're having the molds made, I actually made a chain yoke just to train on because I'm like, I can't afford a normal, I think it was Alpha Fit yoke at the time. They were one that you could get. I've seen, all the Chinese farmers with their rice buckets on their sticks or whatever. I'll just make a yoke like that and made some farmers handles just to train with at the CrossFit gym and sort of added a couple of things. I put a website together, but I had no idea about the sport or anything. I just went, here's some stuff, put it on a website.
Here's three things that I made.
Here's three things that I train with at home. And it was kind of weird because that was a long period of time, 2013, a bit of 14. And then we actually ran we organised to have a seminar come in at the CrossFit gym because a few people were like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. Let's get somebody in. And we actually got Aaron Scarborough to come in and do a strongman seminar at the CrossFit gym.
Yep.
Rory's recommendation. And Aaron was like, yeah, great. I'll come in and do it. Do you need any equipment? And we kind of went, no, it's all good. We've got some stuff. And he's like, oh, that's weird. Where did that come from?
Yep.
Anyway, he showed up and we did the seminar, which is good. He's like, man, this stuff's all right. And I was like, yeah, I've been making it, trying to sell it, don't really know what to do. He's like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Fast forward 6 months, I think I put some stuff into one of his, what were they, like the Strength Series comps that they were?
Yeah, Strength Quest.
No, it wasn't
Potentially?
Strength Quest. It was like the Grand Prix that like him and Scott, they had like
Oh,
a
yeah.
series or something.
Yeah, they might have a cross when there was more Melbourne gyms.
Yep.
Might have like a Melbourne Cup type thing.
Yeah, something like that. So anyway, I think for the first comp we made like some adjustable squat platforms, which
Yep.
have still been used as recently as whenever we did squat at ASM recently.
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Made a dumbbell with a really, really long handle that everybody dropped on their head because it had a really, really long handle. And some other bits
that
and
never
pieces.
gets used anymore.
Well, no, we immediately changed
Yep.
our design. But yeah, so we did that, and then we actually got the call up because Aaron was running his first ASM, which was 2015.
Yep.
Up in Bendigo, and we made some kit for that. And that was sort of like the trial period because he was then working with Tony, who was running the Arnolds. We didn't mess that up at ASM in 2015, so we then got the gig for the Arnolds in 2016, which, yeah, so it kind of went from not doing very much and having no idea to Arnolds. Go for it.
Straight in the deep end, which at the
Very
time,
much the deep end.
which at the time when Giants Live was doing FitX in like 2012, 2014.
Yep.
Their kit wasn't too bad, and I think that was like a lot of George's and Bill's too.
Yep.
They had like the old Viking press with oil drums on top, and it looked quite cool.
Yep.
But I think over the years that stuff started to like break down. And 2015 was the year that they had Robert Oberst wanting to do an American log record. They had Brian Shaw, all these names.
Yep. Eddie.
And and then Bill's brought out this super skinny, like 9, maybe 10-inch log. It looked like an 8, but it was super long.
Yep.
All the pros looked at it and just went, I'm not fucking touching that.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to tear a bicep. No.
Yep.
And then it was Scott that was competing in the 105s that he had the logs at Strong Melbourne.
Yeah, well, interestingly, I remember that happening because Rory was competing in the 105s at the same comp. And the very first log that I made was actually one for Rory. He said, can you make me a 10-inch log, but I want it to weigh like 90 kilos empty.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, no worries. So it was all made out of 10 mil plate, 10 mil pipe,
Yep.
solid ends, everything. And funnily enough, I bought it to the CrossFit gym and he didn't have a car at the time. I'm like, how are you getting it home? He's like, I'll just take it on the tram with me. So he's taking a tram across Melbourne with a 90 kilo 10-inch log just straddling
Would
it.
have loved to see that.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that too. But anyway, he the night before the Arnolds, he's like, Mace, do you reckon my 90 kilo log would be good for like 200 kilos? I'm like, yeah, it already weighs 90 kilos. Like, it'll be totally fine. So it looked like that might have actually been used for the pros, but Scott made up something for them overnight.
Yeah, because I think it was that. All the stones were like dusty as hell. And
I think they were starting to delaminate, like they'd been patched and then they were all starting to.
And then they changed the dumbbell as well. Because Bill's dumbbell was just falling apart and terrible.
Yep.
So Scott brought his in, which was fully machined. And I think he almost would have been supplying stuff for Tony. And then the expense of the dumbbell and everything else, Tony was just like, no.
Yeah, in all honesty, I'm not really sure how that conversation went. But I think...
But also opens the door for then Aaron to take over the sport.
Yep.
And Aaron liking your equipment and being like, sweet, we're in.
Yeah. Which, was a gamble because we were largely untested. But, we sort of proved that we could provide for ASM in 2015. So what we were just talking about was early 2015.
Yep.
And we did ASM at the end of 2015 and then straight into Arnold's in 16. And like trial by fire, like Thor's there, Big Z's there, Rads was there, Eben, like a long list of guys.
Yep.
First event, the pro men were supposed to be doing a loading medley. So it was like a 40-gallon drum, maybe a sandbag, maybe a keg, something like that. Colin and the guys have got in. They've seen our tower yokes, which were like 2 months old tops at that point. We'd made them for
they were the
Arnolds.
Original like 170 kilo empty
very,
things.
very first ones. We'd made them for the amateurs. We'd tested them in the workshop, but not like they weren't competition tested. Colin seen them and he said, right, the guys, we're not doing the loading medley. They can jump straight in on the yokes. So the very first comp test that they had was 500 kilos with Thor and Big Z and all of them. And I'm just like, at this stage, like you all see me out on the competition floor. I was nowhere near that because like this was first go round and I'm just over in the stands just being like, Jesus Christ.
And those guys are not going to be gentle with 500 kilos.
No. So like I'm having kittens, but like, so that was a late change. And then we did the Max log, which was the giant Mad Max log that people would have seen at ASI in whenever that was, 20 year and a half ago. I've lost track of time.
2022 again?
At our
I
place.
think so.
Yeah. So that was the first time that got used. Big Z took that all the way up to 228 kilos. Yep. We had our own 10-inch dumbbell, which was the last event for the pro men.
Yep.
And I think Thor won that at 120 kilos. And then Dimitar, who was supposed to be there for the full comp, he had actually couldn't get through customs and got stuck in America. So he actually showed up really late to the whole Arnold's thing. Like he only just got in by the Sunday.
Yep.
But he got off the plane and wanted to still try a dumbbell world record. And we'd actually made a fixed weight 140 kilo dumbbell, which is still on the plinth at Doherty's in the city. If you've been in there, you can have a look at that. So the guy's jet lagged. He's been in transit for 3 days and he shows up and he just crushes 140 kilos.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That was wild.
It was wild.
No one was close to that at the time either.
Nah, so Thor won the comp with 120.
Yeah, that was kind of the standard for the pros at the time, like maybe 125.
Yeah, Dimitar just made 130 look like nothing in the 10-inch and then just jumped straight to the 12-inch, which still even had a longer handle than we have today because we'd actually messaged him. We're like, Dimitar, how long does the handle need to be? 200. Yep. I'm like, I still think that's a little bit long. But anyway, that's what it was. It didn't worry him, but we've since gone down to 120.
Yeah.
I digress. But
yeah, we had a few world records. Like, I mean, Robert Oberst did the American record in that first year. Eddie did the world record deadlift.
Yep.
It was like 463.
2 or
62.
One of the two. I think it was 463. Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. We were loading the bar, and that was probably my most stressful time.
Yeah, making sure it was the right numbers.
Yeah, there was me and like 2 of the other guys.
Yeah, cool.
And Colin's just like, here are their jumps.
Yep. Texted on a piece of paper because that's what I got.
It's just on a piece of paper and it's just like 340, 385, and then it's like 415 and like random jumps the whole way up. And we're just like, I don't know how many plates that is.
Yeah. We had the same.
Like to do the math. And then he was like, you've got to rush because Arnold's going to come out. So we're like trying to rush and then the pros are pissed off. And like, that's the first time seeing someone Brian Shaw's size walk past me pissed off.
Locking out the sun.
And I'm like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And then we had to like slow it down.
Yeah.
Because then Arnold was late.
Yep, of course.
So, but yeah, that was a world record. Dimitar's dumbbell, another world record.
And I mean, Z was close on the log.
Yeah.
Same thing. Colin hands me a piece of paper and it's got like 170, 190, 204, 217.5 because that was going to be maybe the Icelandic record or something.
A national record.
Problem was the log weighed 168 kilos. So like we're all just like, okay, God, now we need the 2 kilos there, but then now we need a 0.5 on here. But like, oh Jesus, well, it happened. It was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Z was close, but it wasn't there.
I actually got a question from somebody saying, where on the tower yokes is a good spot to weld 2.5 kilo plates?
Oh, it's a good idea.
Because every time, because the yoke's 135 or it's 145.
It's, right in the middle is the answer.
Yep.
Keep the weight centered. But if people wonder like how some of our stuff is a strange number, like 10-inch log, 43 kilos, why isn't it just 40?
Yep.
We try as much as possible to standardize our stuff and not make too many revisions.
Yep.
So even though it's 43 kilos, we've tried to keep it exactly the same.
You can consistently make 43 kilos every time.
Yeah, so you're not like, now, is this the 40 kilo one or is this the 43 kilo one? So that's why we've just left them the same.
Yep.
But, I mean, if we can advertise it well enough, we can make a jump and make a 150 kilo yoke on the dot or a one whatever. It's all doable, but that's kind of the thought behind it is the stuff that there is many, many, many of out there. We've tried to keep them
identical
as the same as possible, even if it's a weird number.
Which you did well for the stones with that. Like I remember the first year, because that first year where Thor and Dimitar were there was the first year that they did like an under 90s.
Yep.
So I competed there.
Yep.
And I remember walking in that first day and seeing like all the brand new stones. And that was probably the first time most of us had seen a stand or submit stone.
Yep.
Everyone's reaction was just like, those things are so like shiny and smooth. They're not going to be able to, like, we're not going to lift them. They're like, there's nothing to grab. There's like, they're not rough. Everybody was just like stressed, being like, this is going to be absolute shit.
Yep.
And then once you put tacky on and you grabbed it, it just held.
Yep.
Like to pick it up without tacky, absolutely shit.
Yep.
But I think everyone was so used to like rough, gritty stones, and these just had nothing.
Yep.
And then after that, everyone's like, oh, those stones are so much easier.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we just have those everywhere?
Well, now you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until they eventually turn
they
gritty
start
and
to pit.
shit. Yeah.
Yep. We actually, like, literally earlier this week, and what today? It's Monday. Last week, we did a batch of stones, and I've actually started playing around texturing the outside of stones just as a test. If there was to be a situation where stones got used without tacky, because I agree completely. Like our stones are. They're beautiful and glossy, and when you're allowed tacky, that's great. But without it, it's either a bicep waiting to happen, or you just can't pick it up. Like, I think, like I've done a 140 stone, but like I struggle with a 90 kilo brand new stone. There's that much difference.
A lot of people load stones in the gym and they're like, I did that without tacky. And I'm like, that stone's got a lot of tacky on it.
If you can do this and you're still attached to it, there's tacky on it.
I'm like, if it's a brand new stone, I'm like, they are really hard.
Yep. So, we're messing around with the concept of putting a texture on them, which is actually taking the shine off of them, to see if there's something that we can create that can be done without significant amounts of tacky, but then the trade-off is also, still having skin attached to your body. Because the one that I tested this week, it was grippy. Like, I could just do that and grab it.
Yep.
But I wouldn't have had, like, after a comp, I wouldn't have had arms left. Like, it was like sandpaper. So we're going to start playing around with it and see if there's something we can do. And, like, it's not going to become the standard, but...
like a stone of steel. Like, I guess the paint finish on that.
I've never used one. I don't know how slippery they are.
People just use, like, a tack towel.
Yep.
And that's it. And they get pretty good, like, adhesion to it. Or, like, chalk.
I would argue that, like, what I'm aiming for is, like, it's chalk only. So, like a natural stone, there's enough texture that you can grip it without requiring an actual adhesive.
Yep.
But
can we start making stones like, Martins has gone around the world and looked at all the different like stone lifting cultures and the Pakistani ones, and some of them have like the indent and like the handle. Yeah. Yeah. Can we just get like stones without tacky, but where you can like put your fingers in it?
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be sort of like the belt clean of stones.
Yeah.
Where it's just got handles.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, we can do it.
And then every stone ever, you'll see Tom Stoltman doing a 400 stone with finger handles.
Sure. I mean, I can do it. Is it?
But like the Basque ones are like square and stuff.
We have like also
different molds with like making it an easier lift, but then obviously making it just an absurdly heavy weight.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's not the exact brief that we're working to, but oddly enough, we've been looking at ways to make molds of natural stones, let's call them. They're not going to look like natural stones because that's an incredibly challenging thing to make.
Yep.
In a 2-part concrete mold. But the idea is this, like, I personally love the idea of natural stone lifting.
Yep.
They're all a puzzle. You don't get help from tacky or whatever. You've got to figure it out and you've got to try and lift it. I love it. Is that feasible to have in either every competition or every gym? Not really, because
or every weight class,
or every weight class. Getting the right stones, like I found this last year for Vix. Like we had to go on an odyssey to find appropriate weight stones. For the classes, and then do they break? Are they sharp in spots? Like I had to grind out some bits. I slashed myself on the 80. Like it's actually really hard to do. So I think for stone lifting to become more accessible for everybody, and I'll give him credit where credit's due. I don't give him a lot of credit, but this was something Cam Taylor's been in my ear about. He's in my ear about a lot of stuff, but this was something that very valid point. Like I think non-round stones is actually like it's a really good way for people to be able to get involved in stone lifting because they don't need tacky. There is things for them to hold, but then finding them in a natural stone is really challenging. So we're going to try and make them.
Yeah,
because then they're repeatable, but they're different.
Yeah, some sort of like oval, but with enough corners to like have hand placements and things like that.
That's the idea.
Which is a great training tool.
Exactly.
Especially people stuck in a commercial gym. You've got a sandbag and you can't do stones because you're in a commercial gym.
Yep.
So you could do sandbags in the corner or something like that.
Yep. That's the
Cut
idea.
out the middle and put plates inside it.
Of the yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk to Ryan Rules about that because he'll probably break that too. But
yeah, he did ask if the safe would be broken.
Nah.
No, well, solid metal safe.
Yeah, like an actual safe. It's not like a me made it. It's a safe.
So if it breaks, it's not yours either.
Oh, I'll just contact I'll contact the manufacturer.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're digressing, but like the safe was chosen for Sydney.
Yep.
Because they're big and they're heavy, and I thought that the heavyweights should probably have that challenge because they've got the widest range to do it. But also, the floor at Sydney's 50 mil rubber, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
they
we
can get away with it.
Yeah, like we've got inbuilt protection, I suppose. So don't stress, Ryan. Just don't pass out with it while standing.
Yeah.
That has to be like one of the most absurd things that I've seen in strongman competition.
Yeah, his eyes glassed over.
He was out.
Very much,
and started walking towards the centre of the circle, and head ref Sean is like, for reference, if people are wondering what's going on, ASM 2000 and this year, was it?
Last year.
Yeah, last
year, Melbourne.
Melbourne. Max distance concrete stone carry, the Quest stone. Ryan Rules, who ended up winning the event, has done a quarter of a rotation around the circle, blacked out, standing up, started ambling towards the middle of the circle. Head ref Sean has been like, no, Ryan, and like sort of pushed him back that way, and he's kind of come back to the land of the living with a 170 kilo stone.
There was a moment of like pausing, looking down and being like, why am I here?
I'll have to
why
find
am I in the
clip
middle?
And I'll insert it.
Yeah, good, do that.
And then went back to the outside, kept doing laps and won the event.
Yeah, we couldn't even penalise him because he didn't take a shortcut across the circle. No. He came in, walked back out again, and then won the event. We're just like, no way. I don't know. I don't even know. I mean, the closest that I've seen is Ant-Man standing blacked out with a 205 kilo stone on his chest at log dead stone. Because everyone's yelling at him like, just move your hands, just finish it. He's up on the crossbeam with like would have been like it was a world record weight for 90s. And when I talked to him afterwards, like, oh man, I was out cold.
He's just leaning on it.
He's just out cold. But madness.
Both of them my clients. Both of them stressing me out.
Interesting. Interesting data.
It's only those two, I swear.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, middleweights has a concrete floor as well, which obviously you can't have a safe carry. Or is that why there's the totem carry versus a barry carry?
Yeah, yes and no.
Because that's all polished concrete.
It is, and like we will probably not bother to mat that now that it's a wooden totem carry. Yep. So that definitely comes into it. Like when we organise stuff, we always try and look at the venue that we have. And now that we've been at all three of those meat stock venues, we understand them really well. So like that does limit our choices for events. But I mean, for those playing along at home that are looking at the title events, you can see that we're trying to do similar events at all three comps. So like the training modality is similar. In this case, it's a max distance carry in 60 seconds.
Yep.
But then we try and spice it up a little bit by going, okay, instead of just another barry carry, which we've seen at Vix in 2 weeks, we saw it at New South Wales, however many weeks or months ago. We've taken a similar training thing, but then spiced it up a little bit by making the totem taller, no arms on it. But it's people can still train with a barry carry if they want. Like it's
I think if you pick up a barry the right way and get down low, it'll be the exact same. Besides that, if it's top heavy, it might go backwards.
That will be the consideration, and that's going to depend on, when we release the totems for each of the weight classes, we'll be able to see how tall they are.
Will you be able to get a lot of matching timber totems?
Close enough.
Yep.
Yeah, like so it's a trade-off of like how wide versus how tall for a particular weight. Yep. So that's where this event selection or the material selection will come into it. Like I'd love to see something that's 14 inches wide and 8 feet tall, but that's probably like in the hardwood gum that we have up at home, that's probably like 220 kilos or something.
Yeah.
So like,
Probably not.
probably not.
Yeah.
So that's always a trade-off. But like just, they're not going to be super tall. It's not like you're trying to run around with a caber or something like that. But just tall enough to just add a little bit of an element to it
something
that's
different.
not a standard Barry carry. Which I know there's a lot of discussion about, standardized versus weirdness in events.
Yep.
But in this particular case, I like the lightweights was a good example. I actually put the poll out to see if they wanted to do the standard coffin or the tall coffin.
I'm not surprised by the votes.
Well, I mean, the vote unanimously came in as a super coffin, as what people wanted to see. But when I went through who was voting, I was like, that's not a lightweight. That's not a lightweight.
Yeah, so sadistically, everybody that's watching them do it
They were
is
happy
like,
to see it.
mess them up. Everyone that actually has to do it is like, no.
Yeah, there were a couple of people, like, I'll try and remember some names. I probably can't. But like there were a couple of lightweights were like, give us the big one. But the majority, and probably rightfully so, were like, give us the small one.
I think, and like someone will probably get upset by this, but I think people that like the really weird and obscure things most, or the people that tend to gravitate towards that rather than standard stuff, are the people that aren't probably the strongest at those events.
Yep.
Because if you throw in something random, they like everyone's screwed. They kind of have a fighting chance and it's fun.
Yep.
Whereas when you're already really strong at something, like if you're a really good deadlifter, just give me a deadlift, and I'll do my thing.
I get that. And
whereas if you're a terrible deadlifter, it's like, give me a silver dollar with dumbbells and bells and whistles, because like I'm gonna bomb the event anyway, so I want it to be cool and different.
Yep. And I mean, sure, there'll be people that are upset about it. I am one of those people.
Yep.
I look at the silver lining of a random event and just go, maybe I'm actually okay at this, or maybe that person that is like so linear with their whatever is actually going to fuck it up.
Yep.
Maybe I can gain some points here, or at least be in the hunt more.
Yep.
I guess so. Like I can see both sides of it, but where a lot of our event choice comes from is this trade-off between, and like, don't get me wrong with the way I say it, like it's a trade-off between what's going to test for the strongest, what do people want to watch?
Yep.
Because if nobody wants to watch it, yes, that's, we still have sport and sport needs to happen, but like our sport is very much a visual exhibition sport.
Yep.
And if we're not adding things that a crowd can visually go, holy fuck, look at that, like that's wild, versus, I'll use a deadlift as an example, standard calibrated plates.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference between, we all know that 400 kilos of red plates is fucking heavy, but if they see two fridges on the end of a barbell, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like there's always that trade-off, and like we always try and walk that line between legitimately heavy and standard enough that athletes can train for it.
Yep.
And what a crowd wants to see.
Yeah. I think it's a hard one between something looking like the big spectacle that it is without it just being a circus.
Correct.
Being random.
Correct.
Versus obviously, being so standardized that it's very easy to train for, but is somewhat like too clean cut and too boring.
Yep.
And
it's all well and good to say, just go and do powerlifting, because that's what everybody says when it's like, do you want standardized? Go and do that. But it's not the case, because like I can see that there is a middle ground between between two extremes.
Yeah, I think my perspective, because it'll always come from being a coach and an athlete, so that's always my view on a comp, is say like power stairs, for example. We've watched that at Strongest Man on Earth with just like duck walk handle. I think the women had 15 kilo plates, so they weren't even like ridiculously wide.
Yep.
So, and you see other comps that just have like a duck walk handle versus something awkward.
Yep.
And you see Mel Peacock like take out that event and beat someone like Big G, who is so much taller, who should be better at power stairs.
Yep.
I think because the implement itself didn't favor someone's size. As opposed to if you have a big awkward thing to go upstairs, someone that's shorter like that would be at a full extension and like they physically just can't do it.
Yep.
And then a tall person would just stand, even if they're weaker, and they'd be fine.
Yep.
So I think for me, for it to be fair across everyone. You know, having a sandbag that's so big that only half the people can get around doesn't test the strength so much as it just tests like how you're built.
Yep.
Which you can't get around. Like certain people are built better for certain things.
And look, in all fairness, like it is got around because traditionally the sport was for heavyweights.
Yeah.
Biggest men, biggest women, whatever. I think a lot of these considerations have had to have been brought in as weight class athletes of different statures have made up such big numbers in our sport. So
yeah, so like when we did Chaos, our sandbag run was like up to 160.
Yep.
But the 160 sandbag was a 140 shell.
With extra weight.
With extra weight. Yep. And then so the 64s had a 120 kilo sandbag as a 100 kilo size bag.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
So they're still lifting a 120 sandbag.
Yep.
Which is still ridiculous and near double body weight.
Yep.
But they were able to express that because they didn't just give them this giant bag that like half of them can't even physically get around.
Yep.
So I think that works really well depending on what the event is.
Yeah.
And then there's certain standards and stones and things like that. You can't go making tiny stones.
I mean, you can, technically.
Yeah.
Won't catch me doing it.
It's weird. Some events I think everyone's all for.
Yep.
It changing to like fit everybody's size, and then some other events everyone's like, that's cheating.
Yep. Yeah, and it's an interesting balance and an interesting sort of, I guess, psychological question or whatever. My argument always still comes back to, obviously within reason, but like if you've got, how do I say it? Like there's sport for the sake of sport, and then there's sport for the sake of still competition, but also exhibition as well. And I think they are potentially two different things. And like that sport for the sake of sport itself is where you would use an undersized, overweight sandbag for that size thing, where you don't actually care what the people in the crowd think of it.
Yep.
We know that it's 120 kilos. It's suited to that size athlete. Great. Everyone's got the same sandbag. That's fine. Versus, like the stone size thing where if somebody's, dare I use the R word, records, like somebody's trying to pick a number, 180 kilos on a stone that's this big versus still trying to be comparable on a stone that's this big. You ask anybody out on the street, which stone is harder to lift, they're going to point to the big one. Like we all know that. So like it's, I don't know, I've digressed, but like it's a balancing act. Yeah. I think.
Do you think middleweights is probably the hardest comp to run and organise then out of all the title series?
I mean, technically yes, because there's 4 categories instead of 2. Well, I mean, there's technically 6 categories going to Sydney, but those masters, like,
yeah. There's only some of the masters categories that make up a full category.
Yeah, stick them all together.
Yeah.
Literally sew them together.
Until a handful of us get another 4 or 5 years on.
2. 1.5. But yeah, it is tricky. It is that is a trickier one to get increasingly bigger categories as well, all 4 together.
Yep.
And I would... No, I'll take that back. I was going to say that the jump between 90s and 105s is quite a big jump.
Yep.
But then so the jump from 105s to heavyweights is quite a big jump.
Yep.
And then jump between 80s and 90s is like, even though we have athletes that transition between them, like, yeah, it's probably not fair to say that, the 90s and 105s are the furthest apart.
Yeah.
Because so are the others, but they're not so close. Like it would be nice that we could double up a whole lot of weights and stuff events, between the 90s and 105s. We can't because like the 105s are a fair bit bigger than the 90s. Like, and so on. That's why we've got 4 categories. Do we need 6 categories? No. I'll just throw that in there.
No, definitely
just jumping on that one early. Like, no more categories until these ones are full. But.
No. I think looking at like the meat stock and middleweights, it'd almost be good to split them up, but I know how much time that would try and take to split them up.
It's just venue,
time.
Time. Where do we do that?
Yep.
How do we lay out the competition? I mean, it's really nice being able to just do 2 weight classes, 4 events one day and 4 events the other. Like that's nice.
Yep.
changing that format to something else. Like nothing's ever off the table, but I guess, and I'm digressing a little bit here, like, and we didn't get to it earlier, but like since me taking over or starting essentially, but taking over AS and having to sort of build the structure, there's been a lot of flux, a lot of change, partly due to COVID, partly due to the Arnolds going under, then turning into the Fit Fest, but then that, like, there's been a lot of change. And what I really want to see for another at least year and a half of this year, next year, probably even the one after, is just really solidify stuff.
Yep.
And then try and look at changes, but make small changes where we need them, rather than just flipping everything on its head.
Yep. And changing all the time.
Yep. I mean, we did it. We started the middleweight series.
Yep.
Which was what, 21, 22? I can't remember.
Yeah, 20.
Something like that.
2022, because that was my first year.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Encyclopedia. You know, and that was an experiment by separating some comps that just had middleweights, and like the concept was good, but the volume of competitors wasn't enough to support it. You know, if fast forwarded 10 years and we had, I don't know, 5,000 people doing strongman in this country, the concept is good.
Yep.
But it's not there yet, so that's why we sort of amalgamated.
Yeah, I think it was good to put it
again.
back with the state level comps and stuff like that.
Yep. But, you know, it was change. We added it. We took it away. And, like, I realise that that's a lot going on. But, like, we have to make the changes where we need to.
Yep.
But I'm trying to limit the changes for a while so we can learn a whole bunch of other stuff and then go, okay, maybe the middleweights do need to be separated now. And if we do that, how best do we do that?
Yeah.
Because it's a balance. It's like, it's not just what is best for the competitor, which, you know, we absolutely have in our, you know, field of what we do in a competition, but it has to be able to suit anybody actually showing up to watch it. Is there a venue to do it at? Can we support it from a date point of view? Like, there's always trade-offs.
Yeah. I had a lot of questions regarding like Australia, New Zealand. Yep. And trying to build, like, I guess, a title of
we
best
did that
between the two.
Did that last year. The Aussies showed up.
But no, because it's hard to fly over.
The Kiwis seem to be getting over here all right. There's a few of them showing up to state comps that they don't have to.
2 or 3? Not enough to fill out a comp though. So
not on its own.
Yeah.
No, they're jumping in on state comps.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's like a standalone, like, and obviously having it alternate each year, like a venue in Australia, a venue in New Zealand. But yeah, finding a way to, I guess, take the top 3 or whatever it is, but the top 3 from like the title series, the top 3 from like New Zealand, and finding a way to actually get them in the same comp. And then you've just got 6 people in each weight class.
Yep. I mean, the questions that I always ask myself now is when. So I think that was probably the biggest problem with where, I mean, we were locked into a date with the Trans-Tasman comp that we did. It was at Meatstock in Hamilton. Great venue. Slightly challenging to get to. I understand, even for the Kiwis to get to, because it's not in Auckland. It's 90 minutes out of Auckland. That's the spot that we were given. But it was right before our title series. So we've taken a whole chunk of people that are focusing on being the strongest in Australia and taking them out of the mix.
Yeah.
So that's challenging. Again, that can be answered when there's hundreds and hundreds more people involved in the sport, where there's people that may not, and like this was the idea for the one that we had earlier this year, was like, hey, you know what? If you didn't make it to the titles, that's okay. Jump on a plane and go and beat up on the Kiwis if you want. A couple did, but not many did. But yeah, finding the time in the calendar when that can happen, now that there's so many international comps that we're having top level competitors going to as well as our own. So like, we've tried to structure our year to be like qualifying season, so to speak, is like July through to November. December and January are basically always cooked because it's Christmas and OSG if you're at the top level. So that rules out a number of people. And then the titles are March and May. April stuck in the middle, but like there's those months. And then we've got a log dead stone that we've got to throw in there somewhere that people will also try and train for. The year's gone. So like where do you add these other things that we're hoping to have the same potential athletes be at?
Yeah. If you're looking at like the best in the country, like the top ones in nationals.
Yep.
You'd probably put it in the mix of like with all the state stuff and the qualifiers. Because those people don't tend to really have to worry too much about those.
Technically now they don't. Yeah.
So it would I guess it would be like New Zealand's top comp, title series comps, then put them all together after that.
Yep.
And
Timing-wise.
give them 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep. And then, so are you thinking individual weight class comp? So like just the heavyweights at one, or just the lightweights, and like
a full comp.
Full comp.
Like that's probably one thing that we're missing in Australia. Like the title series are great because each weight class gets its focus.
Yep.
But we don't have that Arnold's, or like we don't have that big comp where
agreed.
Every weight class is there again.
Yep.
We don't have a nationals essentially.
My argument to that is still like where do we put it that it's at a similar level? Like we're aiming to have all of the top level people like Arnold's was. It was the top 20-ish. Wasn't always top 20, but like that was the idea. And like at that stage, it was only Arnold's, which was for everybody, the top, and then we had ASM on its own, and then we added ASW back in 2017.
Yep.
But there weren't the extra title series in existence as well. So now that we have that, like where do we put it that people can be in shape and have a decent go
I'd kit
at
it out at a gym. Like I'd just do it at a gym
with 100 and something people.
Yeah. D-Style can hold it. We can hold it. Well, it's not going to be 100 and something. Like you take 3 from each weight class.
Sorry. That, sure.
Yeah.
I was referring to an Arnold-sized.
Like a nationals.
Yeah. It's a pretty significant logistical thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be hard to have at a gym.
Yeah.
The Australia-New Zealand thing, I think,
of course,
could have at a gym as well.
Yeah, that's doable.
And then it could swap each year. Like overseas, like with Chaos and a few of the others, they've shown that like you can deck out a gym quite well.
Yep.
And it makes for a really good live stream. And then you've got all the equipment there, and you've got like all the Wi-Fi, everything for the live stream set up.
Yep.
The hardest part, I guess, would
similar
be
to what Coco did with the Beast of Burden. I know that was that was pro men, but like it was in a gym.
Yeah. Same concept.
Yep.
It's just everyone wants their flights paid if they're going over the ditch.
Yep. Yep, me included.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is tricky. And like what I was literally about to say,
you just fill one plane. You just find the cheapest flight.
The one that they grounded because it's an engineering difficulty. We're all engineering difficulties. We'll jump on that plane, no worries.
Yeah,
I'll fly it. Someone
the
else
cheapest
can fly
one.
it.
Yeah,
Tiff can fly it. Don't do that.
So,
all I was going to say about that is like the chaos concept relies on all the best being there, and you're seeing competition between the best on, I would imagine, like relatively standardized events.
Yep,
which is fine. My trade-off is like, what if you don't get them?
Yeah.
Then what have you got? If you can't backfill it, and you can't like. As
a
promoter, that's my sort of
That's where
concern.
they took that big risk the first year.
Yep.
Like talking to Luke, and he's just like, I don't know how this is going to go. Everybody said they're going to come, but if they do or not, and
well, I took that risk with ASI.
Yeah,
and it was a big one. Like it was a lot of money, and a lot of effort, and a lot of time. And the Aussies showed up, and the Kiwis showed up, but nobody else did.
Yeah,
because it's Australia, and like.
Yeah, Chaos has got like the prize pool, which helps a lot of the people, especially if they're confident that they're going to win or they think they're going to win.
Yep.
They'll pay for something full well knowing they're going to get it back. But all the top competitors, you only ever see them turn up if the other ones do. So it's like a chicken and egg kind of thing of once an athlete list goes, and this probably applies to like state level comps as well. Like once an athlete list goes out, if you see people that are good that you want to compete with, then you're like, oh, well, this is exciting.
Yep.
Now I want to jump on it. And it grows from there.
I'm seeing that goes, it's almost a 50-50 split. Maybe not quite. There's people when they see the list and they're like, fuck yeah, I'm in. Like, sweet, I'm going to go and, have a tussle with someone I haven't in ages. And then there's 50 that it's like, oh, I'm out because I can't win that.
Yep.
Which is not great.
No.
That's not how I would compete. It's not how I do compete. But it exists.
Yeah, people definitely avoid it. But, like, the people that are the best in the country don't avoid other people.
No, you're right. Yep.
Like, I've had people say that before where they're like, oh, there's going to be a lot of people at that comp. Like, I don't know if I should do it. And I'm like, if you're one of the best in the country, you should just be picking the comp that you like the events, put your name down and watch everyone else go, oh, fuck, they're turning up.
Yep. Yeah.
You're the person they're supposed to be worried about, not the other way around.
Yep.
So I think the people at the top don't care.
Correct. Yep.
Like, I do a comp with all the guys internationally and I see one of their lifts and I'm like, all right, I'm screwed there.
Yep. But where else can I get them?
Yeah, but I full well know that it's a competition and anything can happen.
I'm doing the same in Tassie. So, like, I've signed up for that.
Yep.
I'm hardly training, but I'll do a little bit. I know I can do the events, which is like, that's my get in for a comp. So, like, for all you listening at home, if your preps aren't where you would like them to be, but you still want to compete, don't worry about winning it.
Yep.
Look at the weights in your category and go, can I do it? And if I can't do it, is it reasonable that I can do it? So like, there's been comps this year that I've liked to have done as an under 90, but I've looked at that deadlift weight and just gone, I'm fucking out. Like, I'm going to zero that. Doesn't matter how much work I put in. Same with some of the overhead events. So I'm like, that's not the comp for me. But I've looked at this one and gone, as an 80, I can do that. I can do that. That's going to be tough, but I think I can get there. And a 120 stone to shoulder, I'm like, I haven't tried that, but
might be fine.
Better. Like, I've done 100. I think you called me out on my tech ages ago. That was a while ago. That's a maybe. But, like, I don't care who shows up. Barry's already showing up to it.
Yep.
He's putting up 150 plus already on his overhead.
Yep.
I'm putting up 110. I know I can't beat him. I don't care. I still want to compete against him. The guy hiding behind the microphone, he's meant to be showing up.
Maybe.
I just do it because, like, I know I'll get better by doing it. I like the look of the events. They're weird.
Yep.
Which that suits me, but I enjoy that. And I'm jumping in. And maybe I might surprise myself. I don't think I'll beat Barry, but, like,
are you highly competitive?
I am, but not as an athlete. I'm highly
not in strongman.
Not as a competitor in strongman. I think most people are competitive.
Like, highly competitive in other aspects of life.
Other aspects of strongman. As a manufacturer or a promoter, I'm highly competitive and highly strategic. As a competitor, I understand my limitations. I understand that I can't commit to the level of training at state level that a lot of other people are. It doesn't worry me.
Yeah.
That if I show up and come 6th out of 7th, I'm happy that I've been able to hit those state numbers and probably do better than last year.
Yeah.
I don't care if I get beaten. Like,
that's a good thing, though. Like, if you're highly competitive somewhere, it definitely gives insight into how athletes think.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to this event changed or the orders changed or, like, any mishaps that happen at comp. Like, knowing that they're so highly competitive that they're like, I need every little strategy essentially to be at my best.
Yep.
Whereas
I get that. But I mean, that carries over to anything that you're being competitive in. You get thrown curveballs and you adapt. And I mean, jumping back into what we're talking about before with, like, weird events versus standard events, my take on strongman has always been the strongest is across an extremely broad subject of tests of strength. That's my opinion of it. That's my interpretation of how World's Strongest Man has always been run. Otherwise, it would have been the same at 5 events for 35 years.
Yeah, they've had their moments where they've had events in and they've never come back. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
If you're sumo wrestling?
Sumo wrestling, what was the other one? The coal shoveling.
Oh, yeah.
They shoveled coal into
is it the brick
basket?
The brick carry?
The brick carrier that took the title off OD.
That's tough.
That was like a 200 meter, it was like a full oval lap.
Yeah.
With like a stack of bricks on his back. And he's a big boy.
Well, he was winning too, wasn't he? Like,
he was in front winning. Like, he'd basically won worlds. And then John Paul Sigmason's like much smaller and fit. He ran off. I don't think OD can run, like, could have ran period without anything on his back.
Yeah, let alone.
So he near died coming around. And, like, I think they're examples of where you could reword it and say it's testing strength in a certain endurance and this and that, but it's too far away from just being strong.
Sure. Yeah. There are extremes of that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, for me, it needs to test strength within, like, probably a tighter modality of what you would think.
Yep.
I'm the same with CrossFit, though. CrossFit is testing fitness anywhere. And then I watch them do a marathon row, an obstacle course, and a bike ride. And I'm like, that's dumb.
Yep.
Like, I like CrossFit more standardized in the sense of, like, using kettlebells, strongman stuff, barbells, rope climbs, muscle ups.
Yep.
That, to me, is the sport. Whereas they go out and do a random bike ride and they have to pick up their bike, and it's like, you're not a cyclist. Like,
true, I guess, yeah.
I think there's too far out where I'm like, you're not testing fitness, you're just testing who actually grew up riding a bike versus who didn't.
That's true. Yeah, I guess if that
kind of like
happens,
a sandbag throw in strongman. Like,
someone
it's
that's
not
done it
overly testing strength. Some people are just really coordinated at, like, getting that movement, and some people aren't. And it's a nice gimme event to throw in the mix.
Yep.
But
excuse the pun.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it never really tests the strongest person.
You're right. But I mean, I guess you're then moving into that, like,
Max
explosive
weight,
power test versus
max
like
weight, max height.
different story.
I think different story because you've got a measurement. Whereas just yeeting 5 bags, there's just so much up in the air.
Excuse the pun.
Yeah. They're all accidental.
I guess the thing with sandbag is, like, if your weight split is that, like, everybody finishes it and it's down to, like, split seconds, you're probably right. It's a technique thing. Whereas if, like, you often see it at Worlds with the kettlebells, where the kegs, the short kegs, where they go up to, like, 32 or whatever, and there's only 6 or something like that.
Yeah, 6 to 8 or something.
Something like that. You can see the guys, like, their explosive power is gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone. And, like, that to me is, like, it's not static strength testing, but that explosive extension is either not there in the first place or it's gone. And that to me is still a test of strength. But it's highly weight dependent. If you gave them 50 bags to do, different story, because it's like...
Yeah, I think the weight selection makes a huge difference too. So, like the Zerchers for the title series, I think for ASM, ASW was a quick race, but, like, heavy.
Yep.
Heavy enough to test who's strong. And then, like, the lightweight side of thing, and even maybe the lighter weight classes of middleweights, it was just like whoever could sprint, kind of drop it, kind of slide on the concrete, get back under and come back. And it was just like...
Yeah, and look, I mean...
Whoever's reckless and manages to pull it off wins.
Sure. But I guess that's the thing. It was like, you know, we always try and log our data. We do, because we've got it. I can just go back and look at it. We try and analyze other people's stuff. But, like, that is something that, like, if in, I don't know, when the next Zercher race will come back in years' time, we'll go back and go, okay, that needs to be significantly heavier in those weight classes, because we have that data. If we don't have it, and, like, what I'm also loath to do is change midway through a prep. So if, like, I'm watching all the lightweights crushing in the gym, I don't want to go, fuck yes, you can have another 50 kilos.
I think they'd love that. Except for the couple of athletes who are already struggling with said weight.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but, like, it's like from a standardization point of view.
Yeah, Lynn's got that at the moment with the axle deadlift.
Yep. But I mean, he's early out. He's early enough out. He's not, but he is.
Yeah.
Like, it was only released
last week, pretty much.
Yep. I mean, take the suits out or something that's like, okay, we're still, it's not like comp day or the week before comp. Do something if you're concerned, or roll with it and see what happens.
Yeah, it's lighter than when it was years ago without suits, and they only had 45 seconds.
Yep.
So it's gone a step back.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yeah, which is, like, I would say it's an oversight on his behalf. So he's got a couple of choices. It's make a change.
Yep.
As quickly as possible. rather than
Like-
closer to the day.
For me, world level comps like that or big comps, you try to cater to everyone so that, like, obviously a lot of people don't zero.
Yep.
But your weight choices should favor the top ones so they have the best performance.
Yep.
Not favoring too much of like the lower end just to make sure that they're okay.
Agreed.
Like there's definitely somewhere in the middle, but I think he's opted for like lighter to be like, I just don't want anyone to zero. And it's like, you got 40 people in a weight class. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there's a couple of people that shouldn't be there.
There is every year. But
Yeah.
that's the same with every
Yeah, every
title
nationals and
shows. Yeah. And like
Yeah.
that's okay. Like as the sport grows, like it's different. Like when
Yep.
you're at Olympic level where you're taking the very top percentage of the very top percentage of the very top, like everyone that's there should probably be there. Like we're a growing sport. So I understand how those people get there and they should be there. If they've followed the qualifying process, it's not on them. Like they're there.
Oh no, if they qualify, they deserve. And you also have to take that step into like a bigger pool.
Holy fuck.
To get
That's the
used
whole-
to that to
That's
then
the holy
come
fuck
back.
step. Yeah.
Anyone that takes that step, I'm like, that's what we all did years ago.
Yep.
And everyone just assumes that some people started off really strong. Like we all took that next step and got absolutely demolished. And went, oh, do I want to start another sport yet? Oh no, I'll stick at
come
this
back around
one.
again. Yeah.
And then you get better and you're like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
The tricky thing with the axle deadlift is because he's just doing it for reps, he's trying to pick a weight that's catering to a range of athletes with one weight on one bar. Like last year with the deadlift medley, at least you've got that range of, okay, they can get in on that maybe.
Yep.
Like at the lower end, you've got a span of 5 weights, and the person that's the strongest deadlifter is probably going to win it.
Yeah, which the loggy's got 2 weights, which is good. Mind you, the lighter log weight is still heavy.
Yeah.
Across the board. So I think he's done well where there's heavy, and if you're not good enough, you're just not good enough.
Yep.
And then there's actually like,
Proper
this is what the top guys are doing.
Yep.
So
well, it'll be interesting to see if he makes an adjustment. I guess the other thing, and like I can't even comment on OSG because I still don't know all the events. I don't know if anybody else does or not.
yeah, there's plenty of rumors.
Yep.
And I mean, so far, like 3 out of the 3 rumors have been right.
Funny that.
Yeah, so we'll
I
see.
don't know about what else is coming up, but like one thing, it's not necessarily about OSG, but like one thing that we try and do, especially in a title series when we've got 8 events, like 4 per day, 2 days in a row, is on its own, an event might look, oh, that's light.
Yep.
But then when we look at it, where it is, what's coming after it, what's already happened, maybe that might shed some light on why that weight is that.
Yep.
Not using it as a cop out, like, but there is consideration for that sort of stuff. So like Vic's last year is a good example. We had power stairs right at the end.
Yep.
The weights in hindsight were probably a smidge lighter than they could have been, but we had to consider that like it's the last event.
Yep.
We want to see people finishing it. That's why we pulled it down. If you look at it on its own, it's like, oh, that's lighter than Queensland's was last year or whatever. There are those considerations. And like usually we get it pretty right. Sometimes it's like it's off a little bit, like the Zercher. That could have been a bit heavier. But like, ain't the end of the world.
Yeah.
And more data is good. More data is always better. So like power stairs for title series this year.
Heavy. I was going to say because the events, like it's got a very like 90s theme to it, essentially like Flintstones press. And then you've got like safe carry and like a lot of these different moving events, like not much static. Both overheads are very like technical, dynamic, like not static at all. So that would mean that some things are probably going to have to be brutally heavy to make up for that.
Yep.
Or power stairs are 3 implements and 3 stairs or something like far less stairs, but it's just heavy.
Yeah, I mean, we're planning to do 3 implements, 5 steps each, so 15 steps. Sort of our standard format. But like, that's where we go, okay, do we want to accept that the majority of the field is looking at 7 reps?
Yep.
Versus the majority of the field is going to finish and someone's going to finish in 20 seconds and someone's going to finish in 45.
Yeah. I think depends on the implements too.
Yep.
Like I think if the handles are low and you've got that back plate on the power stairs where you can't slip under it,
Yep.
People will get a lot more stairs. But I think that's one event that, depending on what you put together,
Yep.
some people will really get stuck and gassed out, or just smash through it.
Yeah, implement makes a big difference. And
Yep.
like, I'm not going to lie, the majority of the implements are going to be plates on duck walk handles because we've got 12
So
different
many things,
combinations of weights that we've got to do. Like originally when we did power stairs at Arnold's in 2019, the
Yep.
idea was that they were all going to be lead-filled buckets.
Yep.
Because they're a smaller profile, a more ergonomic thing that's heavy because it's lead and not steel. I then went and ran the numbers on what that was going to cost and also how many tons of lead I had to bring in a truck, and like that went out the window. But
I'm glad it did because I hated that implement. That was a perfect example of like, I think Smitty was, oh no, he didn't get to it quite. He got to one of the duck walks, but because you can't get behind a little square box.
well, so that was a
And
steel
like-
box. So that was 4 steel blocks in a
Yep.
box. The lead buckets are like a round tube. So like the top pro weight was 245.
Oh, like the buckets that we
It
duck
was a 10-inch
walked?
pipe. No, smaller again.
Okay.
So it was literally just a 10-inch pipe.
Yep.
Which is only that big, that high, quarter of a ton. Because it's
Okay,
solid lead.
Yeah.
Like the best sort of shape thing that you can get,
Yep.
but really heavy.
Yep.
Now I'd love to do that again, but it is tons and tons of lead. me and Dad very nearly like lost our faces trying to create them. Don't tell our HNS this one.
Yeah.
We had like, because we were melting the lead in the pot. So that's all
Yeah.
molten lead, and we were like
And it's
dropping,
like-
we're dropping chunks in, and then we're like, fuck, we've run out. We've got a whole lot of dead car batteries, so we're going to go and get the cells out of the car batteries, which in theory, fine, got a few out, whooped them in, but because they've got like mesh with water still through them, that like immediately boiled and just blew hot lead everywhere. And we're both standing there, like we had our glasses on, but not much else. And there was like splatters of lead all around us. And like, how did none of that hit us? Like,
Yeah.
so we don't do that again. It will be plates of some description. But then it just comes down to, okay, can we, like, how many 10 kilo or 15 kilo plates can you fit on a pin to try and get the diameter down?
Yep.
But if you're still trying to chase a heavy weight, it
Yep.
just comes down to maths after that. And 25 kilo steel plates are pretty ergonomic as far as weight going up a stick, but they're wide. So
Yeah, I think for most of the men's weight classes, like 25s are fine enough to get around.
and we usually chuck like the rubber bumper on the bottom.
Yep.
So that if you're pivoting off of your leg,
You know, digging into metal.
yeah, and it adds a little bit of height. Like you do want some height because then you can actually pinch it to lever up. So it'll be probably like bumper plate at the bottom and then whatever else on top.
Yep. I had a few people want to talk about the grip event.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, you might have. Were they all large of stature?
Some weren't actually, no.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think it'll be an interesting one because, I don't know how the big guys are going to go in terms of like hanging for very long.
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine.
They'll be fine. Will they go as long as an 80-kilo guy with a rock climbing background? No, but they're not in the same class, so it doesn't matter. They're only going against the 16 other lads that are right next to them.
Yeah, I think there's a handful of them. They're going to have to be like with their head back like this, or I think they're going to choke themselves out and go to sleep and drop. Even if I hang from a bar and let my shoulders go up like that, everything like pushes into your neck.
I understand that and like mobility.
The masters are going to be
limitations.
like this.
That's all right.
They're going to be stuck
As long
in a
as their
half
feet aren't
pull-up.
on the floor, it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. On that, like I understand that there are mobility limitations, but there's also a lot of time to try and work through that as well. If you jump on now and go, oh God, like here I am, there's enough time to try and work through some of that. Like, I mean,
Leaning back, you get away with it, I think.
Yep.
It'd only be if everyone was forced to like
No,
have
I
their
don't
head
care how
through.
they're on there as long as their feet aren't on the ground.
Yep.
I do care how they're on it. Like it has to be
hook
two
and elbow.
No, it has to be like two hands on the bar. But like I don't mind if you're back or forward.
You can't just have one and swap hands every now and then.
I think we're going to take. No, I mean it's a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Like a climber would probably do that.
Yep.
But I think for simplicity's sake and trying to standardize it, there's going to be quite a rigorous set of rules around it, just to make it as standardized as possible and make it fair for everyone. Like I was chatting with Louis earlier, as fun as it would be, you're not going to be able to like shit talk your mate next to you or give him a kick or whatever.
Yep.
You wouldn't do it in a yoke.
No.
So we're not going to do it on the bar. Like it would be funny, but you know, somebody's already potentially having a shit time up there. You can't go and put them off.
No, most comps will have a very unanimous rule of like if you mess up something yourself, that's fine.
Yep.
But if you intentionally mess up another athlete's performance, like you're basically done.
Yeah, well, this will result in definitely a 0 in that event.
Yeah.
Potentially some other ramifications as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the most exciting thing about this for me is the fact that we're going to facilitate the entire weight class at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a good move because I find hold events so boring.
Understandable. And like if this was
no
like
matter
two
what
people
fireworks
at a time,
you have,
it would be horrible to watch because it would go forever. Anyway, because there will be some relatively long holds. But so like that's really exciting. And it's literally the first person that drops off will get 1 point and the last person that drops off will get maximum points.
Yep.
We will time, not because it will give us a result, just purely for comparison with other weight classes down the track.
You also need to time you also need like almost a timer on every person. If like 5 people drop at the same time.
Video review. So we'll have specific cameras.
Yeah,
like
okay.
Main one, backup one, that like once it's done. And the luxury of this is even if somebody holds for 5 minutes, the whole weight class is done in 5 minutes.
Yep.
So we've won some time.
Yeah.
We can then go back and just review that footage. Even if we don't take any data when the actual event is happening, we can actually just go back and just watch and just go 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point.
Yeah, when someone physically hits the ground or something like that.
So like I think that's a pretty fair way to do it.
Yep.
And then like the athletes will see when it comes out in the rules, there's going to be some specifics about the commands that will be given to make sure that everybody engages the bar within a second of each other.
Yep.
Because we can't have most people go on and then somebody still be faffing about and jumping on 5 seconds later. There'll be quite a process, but like it's entirely achievable.
I think just set up a floor and just have a drop floor and just go, all right, take your grip, 3, 2, 1, and have the whole floor just go.
Again, credit where credit is due.
If you don't grab the bar, you don't grab the bar.
Me and Lynn were talking about such a thing, and we weren't necessarily talking about the hangman's gangway, as fun as that would be. We were talking about like lifting the whole thing up. But then the problem is like but like you versus Ryan Rawless, you're going to be off the floor for probably 2 seconds longer than he will, but he's still got his feet on the ground. So like it's probably going to be a stepping off of something where everybody will engage themselves and then on a command, there'll be a step off. Yep. And like even if there's a slight variation in that step off, it's going to be...
You just have the steps and you have people at the back and...
we'll play around with it. We got time. Maximum drama.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I knew that the heavyweights would probably be upset about it.
Yep.
But you know, there's time to train it.
Yep.
You might surprise yourself, or you might not. But that's the same as any event.
It'll be a hard one because this year's the flagpole race.
Yep.
Like when I saw that event come out, like, and I can't remember if Tyson was the same. He's not here to defend himself, so I'll say he's agreed with me.
Yeah.
I saw that event and was just like, that's going to be shit to watch. I'm like, that's not going to test strength well. I'm like, everyone's either just going to struggle or they're going to get it. And then watching it at middleweights, I was just like, that was actually really fucking good to watch.
Yeah, we got a lot of really good feedback with that. And like that was hard to set weights for, but whether it was purely by chance or like a bit of whatever, I feel like we got it pretty right across the 6 categories that did it.
Yeah. Which, when that first came out. So it could be the same with the dead hang where I sit there and go, it's a hold event. I think it's going to be boring as shit. And then it could actually turn out.
I honestly think it's going to be nuts. And like most of the people that I've been talking to are like, I can't wait. And they're not even worried whether it's heavyweights, lightweights or whatever. They're like, I think it's going to be cool. Because from a crowd point of view, they've only got to get hyped up twice, or in middleweight's case, 4 times. And they can keep that hype for that whole thing. It's not like you got to build hype for 2 people doing a hammer hold and then build the hype again for the hammer hold. It's literally the whole class, and then you cheer for the person that's still hanging on it at the end of it, have a breather, then do it again, and then we're out of there.
Yeah, I think for longer events like that, and say like the totem pole carry, like the more lanes going at once, the better. When it's a long, drawn out, like
longer
distance
than
event, hold event, like the more lanes you have going, then the more people you can watch.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's a short sprint, it's like you can obviously have 2 people go out and go bang, bang. So it looks better.
I think it'll be pretty exciting. And like if the contract comes through where we get the live gators in from Florida, it should make it a bit more exciting.
Crocodiles.
Yeah.
Make it a bit bigger.
Gators sound better. Even though they're from the other side of the world.
Especially with 2 max overheads as well, which will chew up time depending on
the format
how
for
it's
the format for the second overhead. I think will be good because it's we're borrowing from CrossFit, which is you've got that set time to put up your max. No more like that. You can have your first weight loaded on the bar. So let's say you're going to go for 150. You've requested that early, so that goes on. Athlete ready, go. You walk out. Hopefully you hit your 150. Great. Put it down. You charge out there and put your next weight on it. Come around and do it again.
Yeah, so CrossFit do... Oh, do you mean like the ladder one where they run through...
Same bar. So CrossFit do it quite often when they're testing
they stay on the
same bar.
They stay on the same platform, but it's not like they have 3 minutes and they just keep going non-stop. It's like they kind of alternate between people, I guess.
So
if that makes sense, like you do your lift, they did their lift, and then they go, okay, next round in 10 seconds.
But like at more regional level competitions, like I competed quite a few
it's
times.
3 minutes to work to a max.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're not doing 3 minutes. We're doing, I think it's either 90 seconds or 2 minutes because 3 minutes is too much time.
Yeah.
People need to be strategic with their jumps. But yeah, you've got that fixed amount of time.
Yep.
And you can either flurry around and try and do 4 attempts if you want, or you can hit your opener.
Yep.
Hit something that you're pretty comfortable with after that and maybe do a third, or maybe just go, I know that's my max.
Yep.
I'm happy with that. So it's longer than the minute, but it's structured. It's
way
not
shorter
like
than a 3-rep.
3 attempt thing. And we're doing that with the dumbbell. It's 3 attempts at the start, just like we did with log this year. But then we pick up the time with the...
I think Arnold's with the women set out the dumbbell, and there was like 4 or 5 dumbbells at different weights. And I think they would have like their sort of 3 attempts. So they could hit like a lighter one and then a heavier one.
Yeah, okay. We're going to follow the same format that we did this year, but the difference will be we'll have men and women out at the same time.
Yep.
Like we did at 2019 ASM with the axle, where we'll have both classes out and we'll just alternate between who's going.
Yep.
So it's 2 at once, but the focus is still on one person rather than running all of the women and then bringing out all of the men after that. So it won't halve the time, but it will speed it up significantly.
Yeah. I think having each weight class in a flight or like shorter flights is a lot better from an athlete perspective.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, 17 guys at ASM on log was a lot.
Yep.
I honestly didn't think 17 people were going to show up because they never have before. And then I'm like, we're 1 week out and we've still got 17 guys. Like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. But yeah, not, wasn't quite expected. So
yeah, you almost need to just like, you could take from powerlifting and break it up into flights.
Yep.
But then you've really got to you've got to go, everyone put in their opener and then go, cool. The chunk that opened on the lowest, you're in flight 1.
Yep.
And if they're like, well, that's unfair because they get to see what I do, it's like, well, open heavier
then. Yeah.
Yeah, which is weightlifting.
Yep.
You put in your numbers. If your numbers aren't in flight A, you're in flight B.
Yep. Yeah, we'll look at that. And again, it'll just depend on competitor numbers.
Yeah, because that gets people like in performing at their best and then gone.
Yep.
And from a crowd perspective, you see the same rotation of 6 people and you get to know them.
Yep.
I think that's the hardest thing for a crowd is like,
I guess it's just that balance
you have
point
20
as well,
people
like
go through. By the time it gets back to the next person, they're like, what did they do?
Yeah.
I can't follow this.
Sure. I guess,
Which is why ASM and ASW work, and Giants Live, they work so well because there's 10 people.
Yep.
And ASW, it's if there's 8 women, if there's a woman out there, they're all in the same weight class, and there's 8.
Yeah.
So you
and that's
really get to learn who
Yep.
did what and follow it.
Yep.
Which is much harder.
Yeah, it's just
Obviously
tricky
for
though. Like
middleweights.
if well, middleweights and even heavyweight men, like if we get 17 like we did last year, that's probably like, it's a bit big for a flight.
Yep.
Not by much, because then, you know, if you split it, you got a 7, a 9 and an 8. So that's probably the same as the women, but that just means you can have 2 flights of gents. But, you know, we're happy to look at all of that, like, to get the flow better for everyone.
Do we get an insight on what the last event is?
Oh, I can give you some hints.
Must be a deadlift. If it's not a deadlift, there's going to be people with orangutan arms throwing a fit.
Octopus over there. Well, look,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's deadlift doesn't have to be there every year.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll be some people that would be upset if there wasn't a deadlift, but
It sounds like there's not a deadlift.
They're big implements.
Yep.
Across the 3. No, that's it.
Damn it.
That's it. Sorry, I can't. There's not much I can say
something.
without giving too much away. But,
Yeah.
I mean, what I will say is, like, for all the grumbling heavyweights that they've got to hang off of a bar, what we're planning to bring to Sydney, which we're leaving until the very last event, because it's like a crowning jewel or whatever, it will suit bigger, heavier athletes.
Yep.
So they get that back.
Yeah, it'll balance
Yeah, a
a
little
little bit better.
Yep. Honestly, like, I know they're unhappy about the hang, but I think a lot of them are going to actually surprise themselves. Because when you think about it, even 180 kilo heavyweight athlete, which I don't think we've got too many of, but like, you know, that's probably the upper limit in Australia for the gents. Other than it being overhead versus down here, that's still like a 90 kilo per hand farmer's hold.
Yep.
Their grip's good, even though they're in a compromising position with their belly hanging out. Just wear a longer.
If you could flip them upside down,
Well, if
it'd
they
be
can
like a deadlift hold.
if they can do a bar muscle up.
No,
they
it'd just
can
be
get up there.
be inverted.
I mean, I'm
Because then it
keen.
would just be like holding a deadlift.
Yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah.
Like a bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also said before to Mason off pod, I think the bar hold is great from a spectator point of view, because they'll be like, oh, this guy's Australia's strongest man and he only held on for 45 seconds. I'm going to go to the gym, see how long I can hold on for.
It is really
Which is not what the
relatable.
strongmen want.
No,
That's not what the heavyweights
no.
Yeah, but it is relatable to anybody can
Yeah.
just go and hang off a bar and see where they stack up.
You could throw like an 8-year-old child up there and they'd probably win at every single title show.
We'll get
Well, we
Colt up.
have. I put one up there at 10 o'clock this morning and they're
Still
still
there,
there. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't give it away too much, but yeah, there's one more event at each title show that are different at each one left, I think. Better go and check my notes.
Yeah, I think there is one left at each, potentially.
But you know, there's stones are in there. They're there every year. Monster dumbbell is as standard as it gets. I know it's more technical than a log, but like what we've got to remember as well is like where there's a deadlift and a log, maybe not so much log so much, but like there's a lot of log in strongman.
Yep.
There's a lot of deadlift in strongman. Does it have to be tested at every title show?
Yep.
I don't think so necessarily. We now have log deadlift stone, which is a log and a deadlift.
Yep.
And a
another
stone. At a high level. Like the turnout that we had at Log Dead Stone in May was unreal.
Yep.
You know, really high level athletes from Australia and New Zealand showing up. And like the goal for that is as standardized as humanly possible.
Yep.
For strongman. So there's that aspect as well that, you know, if people aren't getting their deadlift fix at titles, you know, we're really working on that. I can't release anything on the podcast just yet. Get me back in a bit later on. But like we want to spend we are spending a lot of time on building a big pathway for that as an addition to strongman.
Yep.
Not a replacement for anything that we're doing. It's an addition to the title series. And what I've been telling people is, I don't know if you know cricket at all, but like you got test cricket, you got one day cricket, you got 2020 cricket. Pick which one of those two. But like if a full 8 event strongman comp is test cricket, You got log dead stone, which is like 2020.
Yeah, it's always good for beginners and people starting off because they can pick their numbers. Like,
But also, like,
powerlifting.
you'll have specialists that might only end
Yeah,
up
and it's really
being a
good for the top end that just want to hit one big lift.
Yep. Or like, I mean, down the track, I would like to see athletes that only ever end up just being log dead stone experts.
There's guys that do that for static monsters.
Exactly. Well, they can come over to the
Yeah.
But like that, and like that, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like, they're still in the system. They're still putting up.
Yeah, there's single lift lifters in powerlifting, and that's all they do.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this is not quite that because they're 3 lifts instead of 8.
That's probably the single lift equivalent of
yeah.
being a full strongman doing full comps.
Yep. But
Is you just stand still on 3 lifts.
Yeah.
Louis got a couple of questions.
Oh yeah.
All right. Question number 1. If you could create a ridiculously over-engineered and over-the-top event to your maximum capability, what would it be?
Haven't I already done that?
The arm over arm?
Yeah. That was that.
The vertical one?
Yeah, the tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was that. But that's cheating because it's already been done. It's interesting because, to his credit, Brian's doing some pretty hectic stuff at his comps now that are potentially over-engineered for what they are. Like that's great. Some of them are paying off. Some of them aren't as much. But
the bigger the engineering, like the bigger the problem that can go wrong.
Can be, yeah. That's not to say I'm never going to do anything big and crazy again. Maybe not even in the title series coming up next year.
The deadlift that's not a deadlift, but it's going to be big.
But one thing I was thinking of, it was something that I'd drawn up plans for years ago. It would have been like 4 or 5 years ago, just because I wanted to make it. And then I just had to find someone that wanted to have it in their competition to justify, A, paying for it with Arab money, and B, crazy enough to do it. I wanted to make a sword as a front hold. Now, we know that that's been done before. There's a couple of swords in the corner, but I'm talking like 25 kilogram-ish broadsword that's like 8 feet tall, full pattern welded steel, like huge hilt, like fucking jewels, the lot. Like make it. It would be the trophy as much as it would be the event. You'd have 2 guys standing up on raised platforms that have both got gloved hands that can hand it out to Thor as he stands in between these platforms and holds this absolutely absurdly large sword. It's 25 kilos, which is a pretty heavy front hold. And why I threw it in for you, Louis, is because you could do the exact same event with a 24 kilo fucking NC Fitness kettlebell. Kettlebell and get exactly the same result. Instead, you've got this $75,000 broadsword that should be in a showcase somewhere. So yeah, that's my answer for you.
Well, any sponsors that want to make this event happen, reach out to.
Wants a giant sword in their foyer. Let me know.
Do you remember the old? They did like a team comp in the 90s or like a partner comp, and they had like the top world's strongest man guys there, and they had like both of them held a sword out. And they put like a glass of wine on the edge of the sword. I have to try and find the clip, and they're both sitting there like doing this front hold, holding it, basically until they slip up and the glass just drops and smashes.
That's cool.
I have to find what comp it is.
Yeah, I haven't.
But yeah, it was this long hold, and you just see
out
them
in front too. Like that's. Ugh.
So you can make some smaller swords and.
Yeah. The point was bigger the better.
Yeah.
Who's got a 25 kilogram sword? Let's face it.
Yeah, they're not too heavy.
Swords shouldn't be that heavy.
No.
So yeah, that's that one.
Question number 2. Which comps are harder to run? Title shows or novice comps, which may seem like an obvious answer at first, but from the point of view of keeping athletes in the sport, getting novice weights right, etc.
It is a good question, and like there are obvious answers to it, but then the less obvious ones are about the longevity part of it. So the immediate answer is title shows are harder. There's usually more components because, like in our case, we're at festivals, so we've got bumping in on somebody else's schedule. There's live stream stuff that you're now running to somebody else's clock that you have to stick to. You've got athletes that are sometimes challenging to work with during before, after. Usually more events, heavier weights, so you've got more plates going on to deadlifts. You've got more of everything. That being said, novice comps I actually really enjoy being part of and running because I'm watching people come and do stuff that they've never done before. I mean, you see that at title shows because, you know, someone gets a PB. Oh, I've done like a 320 deadlift. And they're really happy about that. But like they've also done a 300 and a 280 and a whatever. Whereas you're seeing people come in and at novice comps and they've never lifted the 10-inch log before or something like that. And they do it on comp day and like it's like a genuine excitement that they feel, their families feeling behind you in the crowd. So like they're definitely more rewarding. We try and run our novice comps at the same level that we run our title stuff. So they get the same rules, they get the same hard reffing, because that's what they're going to expect when they go to another comp. So like we're not easy on them, but that being said, you know, we try and nurture them a little bit. The difficulty, which I think you've touched on in the question, is picking events and weights that can be challenging, but also not too challenging across potentially a very wide field of athlete because they're all first timers. Because you can have a novice that might be a very experienced powerlifter. They might be coming into a novice competition with a 300 kilo deadlift and you've set 180 kilos for reps and they're just going to crush.
Yep.
They're a novice strongman. Will they ever do another novice comp at that level after that? Probably not. Yeah. But that's okay. They're allowed to be there. Or you can have somebody coming in that's been strength training for like 6 months and they're jumping out of their comfort zone and 180 is like the most absurdly heavy thing and they may get it or they may not. So event choice is really challenging. Because you just don't know what the span is. And like you just have to accept that you're going to get, you know, some people that do 1,000 reps and some that do either one or none.
I think having like division-based categories works really well for novice. Having like division 1, 2, and 3, and then you have set weights, and it's like, well, you just jump in wherever you see fit, regardless of body weight. Like you take body weight out of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it.
You get the occasional person that like jumps in a lower division that you really know should be jumping in a higher division, and they just want to win a trophy.
Yep.
So you run into that problem of
it happens.
How do you tell somebody like no? Go get flogged.
Yeah, we come up.
But I've seen that with a lot of success. And then you have big heavyweight guys they might not have even trained and they've lost a little bit of weight, got a bit healthier, and everyone's gone, you're big and strong, do strongman. And they can only deadlift 180 kilos. And then they get to go against someone else that's 100 kilos that came from powerlifting that can deadlift 200 kilos.
Yep.
So you get to see more competition and maybe like tighter competition potentially.
Yeah, without the restrictions of weight class.
Yeah, whereas to get brand new novices that weigh 90 kilos and have them even remotely close to each other is very tough depending on how rural you are.
Yep. It's an interesting way to do it. And like we've stuck to the weight classes purely because hopefully once they enjoy that competition and then jump
transitions
out,
up.
they're like, okay, like now I'm...
Yep.
So at least if they've seen that in their novice comp, they've had their sort of first experience of a weight division versus a skill or a strength division. And I don't think the two at the moment can necessarily work together because we now have 24 categories and everyone's on their own. So it kind of has to be one or the other. But like I think, I mean, it has been done before. Like I know Aaron used to do like strength challenge stuff with levels rather than weight classes. And we're happy to revisit it. But I guess, to your question, Louis, weight selection is challenging and critical. I think also event selection is really important as well. Novices, they want to pull a truck. They want to deadlift a car. I can't stand either of those events at higher level stuff.
I was going to say, everyone that does title comps, they want to do those events too.
Really?
Yeah, everyone wants to pull a truck.
Well, better show up to the title series then this year, Lee. No hints.
Everyone wants to pull a truck or like deadlift a car. Like everyone likes the cooler sort of events because you just don't get to do it very often.
Cool. good. Well, notes. Still can keep that in. I can't stand car deadlift.
It's kind of like a
personally.
finger's finger. Like if that pops up in a comp, everyone's like, oh, that's fun.
Yep.
And like there'll be the occasional person that just hates that event.
Yep.
But there are things that you see in World's Strongest Man that you don't get to see here too often. Like before a lot of Conan's wheels were made, when a Conan's wheel turned up in an event,
Yep.
you were hyped for it.
Yep.
When I had a Viking press for like a comp overseas, and that was before all the Viking presses were made. So the ones we had
were...
Is
that SEL?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we just didn't have... The Viking press I had was at Coco's, which was on like a mount with like a tow ball attachment off a car.
Yep. So
and then a bar that came out and it was like wobbly as hell, and you push into it and the whole thing tips forward. So to have a comp that has like a real one or like a good one was such a novelty, whereas that novelty's worn off now. Because once that came in, then that like events come in trends.
Yep.
And that trend came through, and then everyone's like, oh, I don't want to do Viking press anymore. And Conan's wheel did the same thing.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I think a truck pull is always a novelty because logistically it's a nightmare.
Yep.
It takes a long time. You need the perfect like ground setup. Even at Bendigo, where like every slab is meant to be perfectly level, there'll be a rise and a drop in where you put the truck and how heavy it is.
Which is why I generally avoid them at higher level competitions where everybody's super critical on, and so they should be, on each wave that goes through. So we try and limit that as much as possible. Whereas in a novice comp, we do our best, but they're also not too stressed.
You're just happy to be doing a truck
pull.
I
just want to do a truck pull. So like that's why we sort of see them in.
Yep.
You know, they get the photo that they can take home and like I've
Yep.
pulled a truck or whatever and deadlifted a car. Like car deadlifts. So many,
another one hard to work out.
Yeah. So yeah, we try and add those in as well. And then we try and pick events that, like I will generally not put a monster dumbbell in a novice comp. It's a technically harder thing. There's more ways. I wouldn't put a block press in a novice comp.
Yep.
You know, we sort of try and limit some of that side of it as well to like, we're going to test overhead pressing, but it's either an axle or a log or even a barbell, which are boringer, but
more standard and people more consistent with it and less dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that mean if anyone can't press behind the neck, can they do like a World's Strongest Man and do what Mitch Hooper did and just press from the front?
We're undecided on that. My preference is behind the neck.
Yeah. Because that's a big disadvantage to go from the front.
It should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless from behind the neck they're just actually that bad that they're a danger to themselves.
I would argue that somebody that's on a barbell specifically will potentially be a danger to themselves on the front anyway. Just like with mobility. Like you get away with it on log because you can, like you're out here and you're higher, but like someone who can't find this position on a bar on their back is going to struggle finding a safe position on the bar on their front. It'll be just hovering out in front of them somewhere.
Yeah, it's still better. Like I can still get a pretty good front rack and my back isn't terrible, but I've got to have the bar sitting up much higher than what I think.
You should anyway, shouldn't you? For that.
Oh, compared to say like a back squat or something. Yeah. I think a lot of people get back to where they'd back squat and go, I can't press from here. And it's like, that's not where the bar's there. Yeah.
Again, we released it as early as possible so that people don't just drive in at your max. Like let's work through this and sort of see. You've got that flexibility of grip width on your back as well.
Yep.
So like in a front rack, unless you're a highly skilled ollie lifter that can take a grip like all the way out here, most people are only going to grip in their standard pressing position, whereas you on your back, you just go wider.
You go super wide.
Go wider. Shorten your range of motion.
Yeah. Is that put in and the dumbbell put in so that no one can belt clean anything?
Nah. But it gives
Can you belt clean the dumbbell?
That's an interesting one. So Matt Bridge from New Zealand posed a question where he was sort of using his belt. He was like, "Oh God, is this allowed?" And I went, "I don't see why not."
Yep.
My main argument to him was, I think if he didn't have a belt on, it would have behaved the same. The way he was sort of like shoving it into his guts and then over.
Yep.
Like it wasn't like he was resting on his belt vertical, having a rest and then yeeting it up. He sort of was like digging it in and then flicking it. So that for me is like, I think you could do it without the belt anyway.
Yep.
But like I got lots of opinions on belt cleans.
Same.
But my main thing with the dumbbell is like the principal test of the dumbbell
Yep.
is the stability on the shoulder and being able to press it with one hand.
Yep.
So I'm less concerned about how it gets there. Like I've seen Dimitar sit it in his lap and like get all positioned with it and then like shuffle it off his chest, which is all really hard work. But then once he's up there, he's still having to take that hand off, stabilize it and press it. That to me is significantly different to the axle or the barbell where yes, we're testing overhead. Things still got to get overhead. You don't get any points for getting it to the shoulder.
Yep.
But like the whole point of the axle is it's a fat bar. The MC will be standing there going, oh, this thing's really hard to grip for the athletes compared to a barbell.
Yep.
So the main challenge of that, and obviously there's some more challenges to an axle from here to overhead than a bar, but it's pretty similar once you've got it to your shoulder. So the principal challenge is getting it from the ground to your shoulder. And then if you can take a significant challenge out of that by dumping it on a belt, what's the point?
So the premise is just that it's easier and it makes the lift easier.
That's one of my main things. It's like the axle is harder because it's harder to grip.
Yep.
We allow a continental clean because most people can't double overhand power clean their max. I mean, people can still power clean. They found ways around it. That's all fine. And we put a belt on because, you know, we feel like we need that extra stability through the midline. But then we're using that as a tool to take out a large part of the challenge of the axle to then getting it to your shoulder.
Yeah.
So that's one of my main parts of it.
Yeah. That's what I found interesting with Vix was you can cheat any way you want to and Steinborn and take out the clean and Zercher it, and it's promoting just getting it overhead anyway.
Yep. But it's still you that's doing it rather than
from the belt.
Resting it on a belt. I mean, take it to an extreme. Like I did it years ago. I'll have to dig up the video because I still think it's funny. I had the Cam Taylor signature series belt clean where it actually just like hook some J hooks on it as well. And I just sat it in the J hooks and like, how far do you want to take it?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and this sounds preposterous, but like I'll just sticky tape a forklift to my belt and it's still a belt clean. Like, that's dumb, obviously, but like that change is like, yes, Steinborn is ridiculous. You're not even cleaning it, but you're still lifting it and you're still pressing it up and you're getting underneath it and you're doing a squat to get under it. It's all still you that's doing it rather than a belt or something else. Like you can't put the bar up onto a step and then get underneath it for the Steinborn. That is sort of like in the same vein to me as a belt clean. Preposterous, I know, but like, do you get what I mean? Like you're using an equipment I mean, the claim for the belt is to stabilize your midline and help not die, but now we're using it to get the bar up. Yeah,
I think that's how I used to think for a long time and just didn't like them, and I still can't do them. So I'm not even in defense of we should allow belt cleans because that gets me more weight. I tried it and I was worse. Because I've spent the whole time learning not to use it. But I think just over time watching like judging in general or like just the thin bit of material sitting there or the bit of skin. So even when there's a bit of skin there and the bar sits, if you remove that belt, it would drop.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Even though there's a bit of skin there and you're not using the belt, if the belt was absent, there would be no pinch. So technically that's still a belt clean.
100%.
Yeah, so I think
my next steps there though are remove continental cleans or remove belts.
Yeah, which I'd be fine with. Is like you just adjust the weights and go. But also I think having comps that do have say belt cleans and then making it absurdly heavy, like there's a place for that.
Well, I guess so.
And then there's a place for going. We're going to make it more challenging. No belts.
Also for a max, you could have no belts.
Yeah.
No, like whichever way you want, because
either
you're only
way.
going to put up what you can put up.
Yep.
I mean, my argument there, like about,
Because that's the same for suits for me, is like, I don't think every comp should just be like, fuck it, let's just throw on a suit.
yep, agreed.
But I think there's a place to add a suit, and there's a place to add figure eights, and
Agreed.
a place to add belt
counts.
cleans.
Yep. The belt, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point because like I think we're on the same page with suits and figure of eights because I personally don't like either of those things.
I think
I'd be happy to see neither of those in comps, but I understand where we sit in the scheme of the world of things, and they're going to get used elsewhere.
I think I've softened to belt cleans to coaching like a number of people that physically don't have like much torso.
Yep.
So basically where like their rib cage and their hips sit, there's enough room for them to put a hard belt. Because I've said to them, like, can't you just angle it down? Because I can put my belt almost under my belly button.
Yep.
And then I've got this. And they're like, it physically won't. It's over my hips and over my legs. And I like looked and I was like, oh, you literally have enough room for a belt in the middle and about this much above before you hit chest. And they're like, yeah.
Yeah, so then they're in trouble when they're continental cleaning. So
they've got the tiniest room for error and almost no room for an axle to sit.
And they get pinned on it.
Yeah.
Yep. So my 2 points for that is, and like there'll be some people waving their pitchforks, I'm sure, but like this is my opinion now, is there's generally more ways than a continental clean to clean the axle.
Yeah.
So learn how to do the mixed grip power clean as a possibility.
Yep.
Where you don't have to go anywhere near it. Or the Sam LaSurf Zercher as an like it's not an ideal option, but there are
it's a very
options.
slow option. Yeah.
Yep, there are options. My other one, and like I know we're getting into the specifics of ollie lifting versus our sport, but I can send you 10 videos of 57 kilo athletes, female athletes, if they're in the 57 class, putting up hundreds of kilos overhead.
Yeah.
No belt.
That's also a sport that train two disciplines.
Sure.
Versus
I
the time
that.
that we can dedicate to 20.
My question is though, do athletes, and I guess this comes down to if it's a fixed weight, a weight selection versus a max, do athletes really need a soft belt and a 13 mil lever belt to put 60 kilos overhead or 70 kilos or 100 kilos overhead?
Probably not, but if they've done a yoke beforehand or they've got stones later to come, then that's probably a tool that's going to keep them in one piece throughout the comp. As a standalone on overheads, no. They can brace and they're fine without the belt.
Yeah.
But after doing a super heavy yoke, that belt's probably going to keep them in one piece to be able to get into a good position and not just die.
Log, sure. Like like I'm looking at this specifically as at barbells and axles because of the verticalness of them. Log, sure. I still don't do log with a belt, but that's fine. Like you're in that compromised position with a log, having the extra stability makes sense. But being able to be super vertical,
I'm definitely not on the clean. I'm like so far arched back on like a
continental clean.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's hard for our sport too. It's the same with suits where like you might not necessarily need a suit for an event, but if it keeps you back in one piece so that you can do better on stones at the end of the day, that's like the wise decision. When you look at like, even like the OSG deadlift for axle, it's like, could do that weight without a suit.
Yep. But if you can tack it
I might not even get more reps with a suit because I might pass out and not be able to breathe being in the suit.
Yep.
But it's going to secure my back and allow me to get through day 2, day 3.
Yep.
And like survive.
My third point, which ties into that a little bit, is the grey area of like, it's like the athlete is still holding it in really tight and it's like it's squished a little bit.
Yep.
Or they've held it in tight, it's touched the belt and they've gone straight to their shoulder.
Yep.
That to me is the greyest area.
Yeah, when people move quick, you just can't see anything.
Correct. The thing that I don't like the most, and I rarely see it in high level athletes, I see it sort of, not at the very top, is it's the dump on the belt, have a little rest, fiddle around, and then somehow get it to their shoulders. It's making my gut feeling is that's making overall a weaker athlete. If they're always allowed to belt clean and they know that that's all that they ever have to do to get that axle to their shoulders, that's all they're ever going to have to do. Versus somebody that's never been allowed to do it. So they've built this massive row that even if they didn't have the belt and even if they don't have a gut, they've just got the top of their abs, they can reef it into their body and do it. They're a stronger athlete for it overall. And then if way up at the top they're allowed to do a belt clean, maybe that helps them. But the fact that they've not been able to do it has made them stronger. My concern is that if it's just, we're all belt cleaning now, that we'll just see a lot more of that kind of relaxed. Yeah, well, I can just dump it on that, whatever. Have a cup of
I think
tea,
people will get stronger through different lifts. Not that. I think if you were used to doing a belt clean like some of the top people internationally and you took it away, they'd be stuffed.
Sure, because that's how they've been training.
Yeah, they're still very strong overall and they have a strong back, but their technique would be screwed and they would have to change it.
Modify it,
Yeah. So you'd see
it's an insight where I'm at with it. And like, I understand it's a prig of a thing to ref.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. And I don't disagree with the, anybody that's getting pinch marks on there. Yes, by the letter of the law, they're not necessarily belt cleaning because there's stuff in between, but like there's a pinch mark for a reason because it's being supported.
Well, we might wrap it up because otherwise we'll talk about belt cleans for the next 3 hours. That's it. The Strongman Say with Stand or Submit, Mason Donat.
Cool.
Good.
See you all soon.
Maybe. If we get you back on.
Oh, I'll see you at a comp somewhere. 2 weeks' time.
Very true.